basically there are two types of data sources. Whenever you are creating a report, you need to know the types of data sources. One is standard, the other one is indexed. You remember when I was actually explaining you while I was creating report, there is a checkbox, there is a feature. This I'll talk in a while. I told you, I think you guys remembered. So there will be a checkbox whenever you are actually selecting any data source while you're creating any report. Okay, based on the checkbox, your data source will be automatically populated, whether it has to be a standard data source or whether it has to be an indexed data source. So the difference between standard and index is, so whenever you are actually playing around with the standard data source, and whenever you wanted to filter the data, filter for a large volume, slogan so that I'll have permissions. Now I wanted to create a kind of demographic report which meets all the HR needs with indexed data source. Okay, I'll talk more on indexed data source after I show you the option. You can see here, data source optimized for performance checkbox is there. Okay, when you have this checkbox as it is and select for any data source, you will be getting source of indexed source. Okay, when you are unchecking this one and trying to find any of the data source, you will be getting standard data sources. Okay, the difference between standard and indexed data sources, standard, if you wanted to filter any data, okay, any default data that you wanted to filter, you can do through report filter. Okay, and for indexed data source, those filters will be filtered at source level only. Okay, you just need to check what source that you wanted to have, then run your report. With this, there is no kind of additional time that report will be requiring. By getting into reporting filter and drill down the data, populate the data, it won't take that time to actually return the data when you are using an indexed data sources, because you are actually filling and filtering the data at source level only, right? Now I wanted to have all the demographic information of all the countries in this tenant. Okay, so I wanted to have same indexed data source so that my performance, even though when the huge volume of the report is there, I'll be getting better performance in runtime. Okay. I'll take all workers, the kind of indexed data source. You can see, since you have already checked it, you got indexed all workers data source. Okay, indexed data source type. If I uncheck and find for all workers, I'll not get indexed one. Get standard one, but I'll not get indexed one. You can see here, all these are the sources that I'll get when I look for all workers. The moment I check this, the moment I select this indexed one, automatically this will get selected. Okay. Now, since I wanted to have my demographic report to be created in indexed data source, let me go with this.
Any disadvantage?
There is no disadvantage. The reason why is when you have a kind of complex reports, that will be created in standard data source, you can add any number of calculated fields. Okay, let's say compensation. Okay, for compensation report, you wanted to add bonus amount. You wanted to add all the award types that you're giving to employee, where there is no delivered field is there. Okay, so when you use indexed data source, it's actually tricky, for you to get all the calculated fields into that indexed data source. But standards report supports all the, because the business object would be the same, and you can add any number of calculated fields to that one, and get your report with all the data requirements in a standard data source. Now when you go with this approach, okay, when you go with this approach, having around 30 to 40 calculated fields in the report with total fields of 100 to 150 attributes. Okay. So when you're dealing with such kind of huge report with huge data, the performance of the report will be a little, the slow actually. Okay. Because you're using a lot of calculated fields and a lot of data is there. So what Workday recommends and what we actually follow is, in such cases, we go with indexed data sources. Not every requirement will be actually giving indexed data source. In this case, compensation and what I was referring, you will not have indexed data source, because this actually has to come from merit process. Whenever merit process is initiated, the data will go into one of the business object, where that business object will not be available under indexed data source. There is a business object called adjustment for. Okay, adjustment for business object, which holds all the merit information. Okay, the moment your HR initiate the merit process, all the data that actually holds in the merit process, like percentage of hike, percentage of hike different in the bonus amount, all these things will be going and sitting in adjustment for business object. You will not have this adjustment for business object in index data source. So in such case, you'll be actually creating a hell lot of calculated fields, and get the data you wanted to have. Now, the same case, if you actually consider, okay, for index data source, though you will not have a the source that actually meets this kind of requirement, and you'll not be able to achieve this one. So in such cases, you actually need to go to standard report, the standard source, but not index data source. But most of the complex reports, most of the business reports where business users will be actually looking, we will be developing those reports with indexed data source. There is no disadvantage, or there is no kind of any kind of a performance issue that you will see. But only thing is, indexed data source, since it actually has all the data at source level. You can see here, all workers, indexed all workers is there. Now I have data source filter here. Okay, I can do filtering with all this information. Okay, if I wanted to have any kind of time off information, I think this tenant has the limited kind of this thing, but you can also do any kind of employee status, employee kind of type requirements and all. You'll have an option to filter at source level only, so that when you actually run index data source, it won't take much time. But standard data source also will give you the same kind of information, but with little time difference. That is the only thing that standard data source will be doing. But there is nothing that we cannot use these both data sources. That's one thing. But what Workday says is, if you have any kind of delivered fields, try to use those delivered fields instead of building multiple calculated fields. But when we have a requirement, that demands to create calculated fields, there is no option for us. For example, the one that I was saying, right, compensation reports. Okay, so when you are actually developing a compensation reports, whatever an employee is getting at the end of the year as part of annual bonus, or as part of compensation review process, all those components should be added in the report, right? Where Workday will not be providing those delivered fields. Okay, as per your organization requirement, you'll be having your own compensation components that actually gets increased as part of the compensation review process. So you have to create a calculated field. Let's say joining bonus will be there. Okay, joining bonus will be there, or performance bonus will be there, or one-time reward, would be there, which is your own organization need that. So you'll be actually creating that plan, that award in Workday, and that configuration team will be doing. They'll be creating this kind of awards and rewards in Workday. And what you have to do as a kind of a reporting analyst is you need to pick that configuration into your calculated field and get that value in your report that you're delivering to your business. Such kind of things will be there, but there is nothing that disadvantage that we have with both different requirements will demand each of these data sources. When you have huge amount of calc field requirements, if you have the data source that index the one will support, you can go with that one. But when your index data source does not have that source which gives all this value, you obviously need to go to standard data source. And definitely when there are no delivered field that is giving the format or any kind of information that you're getting with calculated fields, there is no option for you, to go with reporting without that calculated field. So you need to create that calculated fields to get the data. Okay. Here, any questions? Any questions or anything unclear?
Team, any questions? No question, we can carry on.
Okay. I'll randomly select the important data fields instead of giving all the information. Here, prompts actually matters a lot when you're actually dealing with such kind of reports. The prompting kind of information that you will be giving matters a lot for reporting. So all your hire dates and all will be populated as prompt.
Question here from my side.
Yep.
So the prompts that you're saying in Workday, are these prompts like defined somewhere, or how, or do we define it, or can?
Yeah. So in index data source, prompts will be built in. Okay, those will be coming, with the source itself. But in standard data source, some of the data sources, let's take payroll related data source, payroll result line or payroll result, which are payroll result, what we are getting as part of, when employer is getting paid to us, whatever results, that we are result in the sense actual payment that we are getting. Okay, and those are actually called as payroll results. when you are actually reporting on this kind of information, payroll results, whatever, when you're reporting on payroll related data, okay, so payroll related data will be having its own prompts, okay, like pay end date, pay start date, okay, pay period, kind of default prompts that you'll be getting from source only. So you wouldn't be needing any kind of additional prompts that you will be adding, that comes with source only.
Okay. And do we have an option of creating these prompts while using standard data sources?
Yes, you have. You can create, right? Yesterday we have seen the way of creating prompts, and probably now also we'll be seeing defining some
Okay.
prompts.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So there are two fields here. The termination date. You need to know the difference between termination date and termination date all. So there are two fields. Probably you need to know the definition of these two. Termination date, okay, will actually returns all the termination dates, okay. And now let's say if employee has got terminated, okay, and they'll be getting a kind of termination date. We'll be getting the employee termination date. And if employee again got rehired, again got hired into the system, okay. When you use for such kind of reporting, when employee is getting rehired, okay, this field will actually give termination date of that employee. Though employee has rehired, okay, this field termination date will give because there is a termination date in the system, okay. Let's say for example I'm there, okay, I'm there, and my hire date was somewhere around 1/1/2022, okay, and I'm getting terminated today 27/2022, okay. Now when you are reporting on terminated data on 27th, on July 20th, my termination date will be populating. And now again somewhere in August I'll be again rejoining as a kind of rehire, okay. And even after I rehire, when you are actually creating a report on terminations, my termination date will still be there because I actually got terminated on 20th July and I got rehired. So that doesn't matter, but still my record is there as a kind of terminated one in Workday. Okay, that's the reason why when you are actually reporting on termination, it will look for only termination date and it will return the data. Whereas you come to termination date all field, okay, it will actually look for rehires, okay, it will actually look for rehires and exclude those terminated dates actually. In this case, same example, if you take the example I was referring, I've joined again in the month of August, where my termination was somewhere in July month, okay. And now when I'm reporting in August month or after I rejoined, my termination date will not show here because I'm a rehire, and this termination date will not look for will not look for employees who got rehired and drill down with their hire date. Will not look for that one. So it will only look for employee who got terminated who have not again rehired. Such kind of the feature that this both has, and you need to know whenever you're actually building, and probably a lot of support requests you'll be getting when you use this termination date. Okay, and you'll be getting when you use this termination date, and a lot of HRs will be reaching out. Hey, you have created a report which is giving active employees as termination date, but still that employee is there in the organization. Why termination date is populating? Such kind of questions you'll be getting. Okay, that is because this actually that employee might be rehired, and this is actually pulling before rehire whatever termination date that employee had. This field would be rehiring. This field would be detecting that information and getting that. But when you use this one, termination date all, it will not look for a termination date, but the employee who has got rehired, because that employee is active in the system. That only looks for inactive. When employee is inactive, that only pulls termination date. You can also do this with calculated field also, but Workday has given a kind of delivered field for such kind of information. Okay, just for your information. And now I have some basic information here. And now I wanted to have, though I have built-in prompts, okay, for the moment you uncheck this one and check, you'll be having all the filters that index data source will defaultly keep, okay. And for our requirement, we also want some additional prompts for our comfort reporting. Okay, so we wanted to have hire dates. Person who has hide in between this hire date, will be selecting, and the location will be selecting, and employee type will be selecting. Each HR will be looking for their own resources of in a particular location, so we'll be giving location as a prompt. And employee type is one of the important thing when you wanted to filter only for employees. Not employee type, so time type. Time type is nothing but full time, part time. So I wanted to know whenever I run the report between the ranges, between date ranges. Okay. So first I'll give greater than, and the one next I'll give less than, so that I can do all the report filters based on the date range. Location from in the selection list. Okay. Now comparison type. Since we wanted to have all the prompt, right? I don't want to go with value specified in the filter, and I wanted to take the prompt even when it is blank, it has to return. So yesterday I was telling you, right? When your report is not a web service enabled report, you actually can go with just a filter prompt. But when your report is is a web service enabled report, you have to actually go with this thing. And coming to indexed data source, definitely there will be a prompt automatically by default. Few prompts will be there. You can restrict these prompts if you don't want it to. Okay, default prompts you can restrict if you don't want it to, and the prompts that we have added in filter, right? I can get those filters here, so that all my reporting will be working as how we select the prompt. You can uncheck if you don't want to use those prompts. So what was my first prompt? Hire date. On qualifier would be starting date, starting prompt. Okay. So I wanted to have this prompt to with start date. Okay. The other one would be ending prompt, which should actually give last date of range, higher date range. You can take ending prompt.
Can we not use that checkbox and this will auto-populate?
Which one? This one.
Yep.
After adding, you can use. After filter, after you add prompts as a filter, you can use. Okay. If those are filters that you wanted to have, you can use. But the default prompts, even if you won't use in the filters, those by anyways, by checking this checkbox, you'll be getting. And after you add some filter related prompts, When you check this one, those will be automatically populated. I've checked before I used a filter prompt. There's a reason why I'm adding this one. And location would be right. Okay, now I have the one, and few things I don't want to populate. Okay, like worker types, I don't want to populate, and is active. Will actually I'll select from prompt only, but do not populate. Okay, and supervisory organization, which I want to populate. So organization by primary person, which I don't want, and includes organization, which I don't want. Now I have hire date, location, time type, and organization by type also we don't want, and location we want to have. So for this, I'll just move location here. Organization by type we don't want. Okay. Yes, now let's make it. And it populates. Okay, we have two locations here. And it's active. Okay. When I run this, the flexibility what we are giving to HR is select. Okay. So you can actually take this hybrid one. Should not have. We can start, whatever we wanted to have. If you wanted to have ending prompt as first and starting as first, you can do. And this is how you'll be making your HR. HR will be asking you what to prompt. Okay, so they'll be asking you, or since they'll be running a reports globally, not for just a location. It's better if you can give prompts to them. prompts to them, just select whatever location that they wanted to have or time type that they wanted to have, and any kind of hire date range that they wanted to have, anything that they wanted to have, we can select. Okay, this you can actually ignore. You can actually uncheck this one. This is actually looking for active employees, which you can actually since we made it as required, it is populating. If you made it as not required, this asterisk symbol you'll not be getting. Okay. Now let's say starting hire date. This one I think we can ignore from prompt. I'll show it how this can be taken out. And let's see. I wanted to go with the current date. Okay. Wanted to time type, full time, location, any specific location that you want to do, you can do this. And I don't want to actually give anything location specific. I'll run this. This actually filters the data between the date range that you have ran. Okay, so there are no terminations here that we've got. Basically, this will give all the termination information, all the cost center related complete demographic information. I've added limited data here, but all the demographic information you can give per HR needs, which will actually give the required information, and the prompting will be populating as per your criteria that you wanted to. If you wanted to go with the just hire date, not any other field that you wanted to do, you can do this. Or you wanted to filter with the location or country, you can also add. Or you wanted to do with cost center. Okay, employees will be unique from one location to another location. There might be unique cost center. So if you wanted to do prompting based on cost center, which will actually give globalized reports, in that way you can configure the prompting options for cost center. Anything that you can configure as how we have done now. Okay, that actually plays a typical role when you're dealing with business related reports. Okay. Any questions so far? Anything that you wanted to know with this specific type of report cases where we use some decent number of prompts that are required by business to actually return the data that they are looking for? Anything that you're not clear?
A way to remove the mandatory prompt, or we can just check it as not required?
Which one?
The mandatory prompt which was on the front end. Yep, is active is the mandatory prompt.
Yeah, you can uncheck this one. Okay, if you uncheck this one, that required asterisk will go. And if you can do this one, since the error why we were getting initially is we made as required and we made as not to populate in runtime. There's a reason why we were getting actually. So the error was saying you're making report to actually is active as inactive, but you're making it not to populate in the runtime. It was the error. So I unchecked do not prompt, and we were getting this on our runtime prompts. But if you don't want this to be populated, you can actually do not prompt at runtime, which will work actually. I think this is general used demographic kind of report for all the business cases. I think you guys will be having already this kind of reports with same kind of information with your where your HRs might be using this or running this very frequently, and that's how you actually go with all the demographic information.
Can we run the report now?
Sorry?
Can we run the report now since we have unchecked the mandatory prompt? Because
that will not come now because we have removed that, right?
Yeah. Okay. And the hire date is also the built-in prompt, right? So
Yes,
we can uncheck that as well. Okay.
Prompt. you can actually make, instead of going with the multiple hire dates, you can actually, let me see what else exists.
I think the hire date is in the undefined prompt, and we need to uncheck that, and we have to add both the dates which between the prompts which we are looking.
This is already unchecked, right? You mean to say in order to get those hire date fields?
Yeah. Yep. The one which we have defined in the filters. Yeah.
You can go with scheduling also, since these are recurring reports which are actually required by most of the teams. You can go with scheduling as well if it is needed, or just since you're allowing the kind of prompts, right? We'll make HRs to actually manage this with prompts.
Can you go back to the filter section?
Yep.
Yeah, in the filter section, when in the field column where you have added hire dates and location, can you click anywhere in any of the fields?
Yep.
Yeah, there are other options that come, right? Fields on report, all, and there is a last option which is create calculated field.
Yeah.
Field.
Okay. So fields on report are nothing but you actually get all the fields that you use as a column in report. Okay. So all the fields that you've used here, right? You'll be getting all those fields, whatever that are allowed to take as a filter. You'll be getting all those fields in the report. You'll be getting all the report that you've used as filter. Okay, which are kind of since we are actually doing indexed one, the filter which you can use, you can see all the indexed filter types will be in yellow color. Okay, in yellow color, which you can actually filter with. These are the fields that are already available in the report. Okay, if you wanted to do filtering with these things, you can do with these things. And if you wanted to do with any calculated fields, you can go with by category. Whenever you create a calculated field, your system will actually categorize them under uncategorized fields. Okay, you can actually get all those calculated fields in uncategorized fields.
So irrespective of the report that we have created the calculated field on, they'll be here.
Yes, all the irrespective of report,
okay.
All the calculated fields you'll be getting here. Even the calculated field that you would have created for your other report, that will be coming here. Okay, and few of the fields that are not categorized under any kind of specific option, you'll be getting those as well. Okay, so where specific category like include, delete, and not applicable kind of fields you'll be getting. And whenever you create a calculated fields, if you're not able to find that in this list, when you enter, let's say, I would have created CF management level, calculated field management level, which populates only the ID of that management level. Okay, not name of the management level. I would have managed to return only the ID of that management level. So if I enter that here, if I'm not getting, the reason is it is not categorized yet. Okay, it is not categorized yet, and probably during that time when you have created a calculated field, there is a in the background there are some jobs Workday would have created. Okay, for every 5 minutes, for every 10 minutes to sync with the tenant. Okay, so that would have not ran, so that you will be not finding that calculated field the moment you enter here. So in such case, you can go to by category, go to uncategorized field level, There you can find your calculated field here. If you go to uncategorized, you'll be finding those calculated fields which are not marked as categorized. Because the moment you create any field or any calculated field or create any integration or schedule, so sometimes, not all the times, when tenant performance is not that good, those process that Workday would have defined in the background to run the process will not run. Okay, when those will not be running, your calculated field will not sync with your tenant, and your scheduled jobs will be performing incorrectly, without any kind of proper schedule information. Such kind of things will be, I haven't seen this, but when I was actually encountering some kind of other related performance issues, and when I was trying to troubleshoot the reason for the performance, I got to know that whenever there is a downtime with the tenants, these process jobs that Workday would have, Workday is managing in their end, those will get stopped. When those jobs will get stopped, your calculated fields and other kind of activities that you will be doing will be not processing that well. Okay, that is one thing you can know here. But rest of the things, if you go here, all the related domain or specific categories. If I wanted to go with any kind of absence related, I can go to absence, absence list and find that one. If I wanted to actually go with any kind of compensation, I can go with business process related. I can find all those fields under each category. But
these,
yeah.
So these categories that are there. So for example, you said business process, right? So business process name, if we go within business process name, and let's say that we want to pull the business from business process name as a filter. But for that to be used as a filter, the data sources have to be linked. Otherwise, it will show nothing, right? Like this.
Yeah, if anything is there, that stands as a kind of, the related or associated business object with the business object that you are using here, you should be able to see. Though it is showing, under that category, if nothing is there, it will be empty.
If the linkage is not there, then it will be empty.
Yes, it will be empty.
Okay. And how about the last option, which we get created?
That last option. Create calculated field.
Yeah.
This one or other?
The
other
last
will
one,
have all the symbols and all that. Your brackets, dots, and all. If you wanted to use, you'll be getting all those in other, all the instances, like if you wanted to use any kind of symbols, date related stuff and all, you'll be actually getting from other.
Okay.
I thought that is a global field.
Yes, this is global. There is a business object called global also. Okay. When you create any field in global object, you can use in any of the business object in any of the report in Workday. Any of the business object, let's say, numbers, okay, date constant and a numeric constant. These kind of requirements you will be getting for all the reports. Okay. Most of the reports will be actually using date constants and the numeric constant. Okay. If you go ahead and create that field in a global business object, you can call that field in any of the business object. In any of the report, you can call it, because that is sitting in global, right? So which can be synced with all the business objects in Workday. Whenever you're creating a calculated field, whenever you're tweaking the data, you can play around with global fields, which actually will not create any issue in returning that information. Some of the fields, though you're able to create calculated field by pulling that object into it, it will not return the value. It will show blank, because the linkage will not happen. It will show blank. But global business object will be able to give all the information, even though when you use it, there is no linkage happening, because the purpose of the global is to sync up with all the business object in Workday. So I think global business object will be helpful to you with maximum number of calculated fields that you create, related numeric, related alphanumeric and all. Text related values. When you're creating when you have such kind of requirements, global would be helpful for you to call it to any of the report that you have in Workday.
So let's take an example, Amit. We're using the global field as a filter, and we use the date as a filter. And let's say the primary object or business object that we use, let's take the same example. We have used an index business object, and we are using some details of workers from that business object. So if we are using date from the global field, how do we know that which column in the business object worker, or let's say the one that you have used in this example, is the date column or the date filter being linked to?
When you go
how
for a
can-
global, when you go for a global related fields, you'll not see anything defined actually. So those are constant values. Okay. Those are, let's say numeric date constant. If you wanted to have date constant to be populated as 20th of July for all the rows of data, okay, you have an option to create that date constant in global business object. Okay. So when you wanted to use that as a filter, okay, it will only give the same date, right? It will not give any other information. So mostly, you'll not go for filtering. So these are all the global related things, global related values, whatever you're seeing here. These are all the values that will be sitting in global business object. Okay. Mostly those will be dates, symbols, and any kind of, text values that you'll be seeing, but not, any kind of real data that actually manages employee related information. So mostly, you'll not go with global business object related filters. When you don't have normal regular filters, that you are using at report level, when those are not giving you the right value, you go for creating that field in global business object and add that as a filter in your report.
Got it. Okay.
But mostly you'll not see that case, because all the data you'll be able to find in the source where you're creating report, or the object that you're creating, right? Most of the data you'll be finding there, the filter related information. In case if you're not finding, you have a related business object, right? We'll go with a related business object by having it in sub filter.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
I think there was one last option, which was create calculated fields.
Yeah, create calculated fields is nothing but whenever you wanted to create a calculated field, there are two ways that you can create. One is from the search bar. Your search bar will be coming right in the middle. From the search bar, you can create that calculated field, and from the report you can create. Okay, if you create calculated field from the report, okay, from the report, if you create calculated field, those calculated field are specific to your report, cannot be used in any other report. But if you use the calculated, if you create a calculated field from the search bar, you can attach that calculated field to any number of reports, which is nothing but at tenant level, you'll be creating that calculated field. Okay. But if you're creating a calculated field from here, which is nothing but you're making that calculated field to restrict to this report only. Only this report, that calculated field will be visible. Okay. And those calculated field you can use as a filter when you wanted to, when you're going with filtering options. If there are any calculated fields specific to reports, you can call those, calculated fields as a report. But as a best practice, what we will suggest to all the developers is, create calculated fields from search bar. Okay. If anyone is creating calculated fields from here, the other person will not know whether it is created or not. The other person will again create a calculated field, and the number of number of calculated field creation will get increased. In case if you are creating from the search bar, and as a kind of first level check whether that calc field is available in the tenant or not, I'll be checking that. Okay. In case if I find the calculated field that is meeting my needs, I no need to create that calculated field. I can just use that one. But most of the folks, what they'll be using is they'll be actually restricting the calculated field to their report. Okay, with that, there are duplicate kind of calculated fields will be available in the tenant, which will be actually that kind of unnecessary space those calculated field will be occupying. So what we suggest is all the calculated field that member will be creating should be from the search bar at tenant level, so that can be used across reports, across scheduling process, across integrations, anywhere that calculated field can be used. So those calculated fields will be returned. If you are using any report specific calculated field, you'll be getting that fields here.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I think we are close to time. I thought of covering those attrition and headcount reports also, which are actually very important. though you would have created them, but the way actually the grouping happens, the way attrition ratio will be actually picked up. I wanted to actually explain those as well in today's agenda, but no worries. Tomorrow I think we'll be actually spending some little extra time. I'll be able to cover all the agenda items in a